Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Dr. Carter, for those of you that don't know me, and we're here in SCIN 499, the Natural Science Senior Seminar. Just want to take a few minutes to kind of give us some context and help everyone get off to a solid footing. I do want to give a big shout out and hello to all of those of you who just completed 400 with me, or perhaps completed it sometime in the past. I'm so glad to have you back. For everyone who is new to me, again, Dr. Carter, you can find my intro in our classroom. But I just wanted to note, I'm glad you're here and we'll get accustomed to each other in short order. And overall, for everyone, please let me emphasize that I know this class is daunting. It's daunting for you as a student. You may not know what's needed to be done. You might not be accustomed to some of the requirements at the senior level. Um, and that can be scary. And I am here to help. So please take that message from here. And also take the message that I'm so glad to be here with you. This is the culmination of your program of study. And that's really exciting, even as it's scary. So this video is just a little bit of context, and in particular, a walkthrough in the two different paths that we will have going concurrently in this class. So without further ado, let's keep going. So where are we right now? If you were in this class, you successfully completed Science 400. Again, either with me or with another professor in the department. Everyone left Science 400 with a research proposal. So at the end of Science 400, everyone is at the same spot. Now, however, we're facing the question of, are you going to complete that proposal? I did make a video kind of discussing the sequence of these two courses and the different paths that I post in 400. I will post a link to that video again along with this one. And if you just need a reminder, you can start that video at about the 8-minute mark. If you want to see the overall flow, you're welcome to watch the whole thing, but otherwise start at the 8-minute mark. I'm going to talk more about the Science 499 specific details in this video, but I do want to offer that video as a resource. So what we need to do right now in considering whether or not you're going to complete that proposal is really ask yourself three questions. First is feasibility. There are a lot of things that go into feasibility. The biggest one can be, do you need any type of external regulatory approval? That would be an IRB. If you proposed a study that collects data from people or samples from people, that has to go through an IRB. And if you have not already done that at this point in time, that's out from a feasibility standpoint because we simply don't have the time. So you'll see these all kind of connect together. But if you still need IRB approval, that is an X against the feasibility criterion, and therefore you're not going to be able to complete that proposal. The other thing to consider is location and scope. So perhaps you were suggesting a field study in a specific location that you are not at. This could be particularly relevant if you have moved since you took 400, or perhaps you were just interested in an environment that you are not in. And then scope is just how big is the project? How much time? How many different locations? How many different samples? All of those things need to be thought about in determining that feasibility. The next question is resources. Time is a resource, yes, but we're going to consider that separately in a second. But do you need special equipment or samples or specialized knowledge, access to experts that we don't have readily available? Any of those resources, if there's a no there, then you're not going to be able to complete that proposal. And then lastly, it's time. Really, you have less than 6 weeks to do your data collection. And even as you're doing data collection, you're going to need to be doing other things. So you want to think through all of those and consider whether or not you're going to continue with your proposal. Now, let me make an important caveat. It could very well be that you do have something that can still be addressed experimentally in our class, but we'll need to scale it back as a result of the time constraints or the different samples that you might need. And so take home nothing else from this video. If you have any questions about where you are going in this class, reach out to me so we can talk about it. Week 1 is really about getting everyone on the right path. And that is why your proposal, your project, your senior project is not approved until the end of this first week together. But I wanted to give you this video early on so you can start thinking about these things, okay? So I've already mentioned my previous video. Again, I will link that along with this one. So right now, we're just going to focus on Science 499, enacting that plan, maybe. Again, so we just went through those caveats, okay? So two options, and this looks very familiar if you watched the previous video. Option one is completing your experimental plan. It's a direct transition from 400 to here in 499. I will help you update that plan if needed. Now, again, I may or may not be the professor you had in 400. That doesn't matter. I'm here to help you finish this one way or another. It's a little bit smoother transition if you had me for 400 because I'm already familiar with your project and I've seen it kind of evolve, but we'll both get caught up otherwise. Has to be feasible in terms of scope, time, money, resources, all of those things. Got any questions, reach out to me. If you think that it's still doable, but it needs to be scaled back, again, reach out to me and we'll work that together. Option two is you're transitioning to a literature survey. Now, if you had me for 400, I tried to be really clear in my feedback with you at what I saw as feasibility long-term for your project. So it is infeasible for any number of reasons. Most often, just hearkening to my experiences with 400, it's usually due to specialized equipment. So maybe you need to take research samples and analyze them on a mass spec or scanning electron microscope, some type of specialty equipment that we don't have, can't provide, and you don't have access to. And which case, that's not a problem. You're going to transition now to this says literature survey, but it should say literature review. I'm going to refer to it as a literature review from here on out, or more commonly, just a lit review. Most importantly, you keep the same basic topic. Okay, so you're not starting from scratch here. Everyone has already done some amount of background research. You had to do that for your 400 proposal. So everyone is still going to be able to use that starting research investigation. It's just where you're going to go with that. There will be a little bit more hands-on for me here in the beginning if you're transitioning to a lit review because it's a little trickier. So the key difference between the two of these is you're going to do a lot more reading and summarizing of published papers, and you will have no data analysis or statistics. Very, very critical. Sometimes I see a little bit of confusion between a lit review versus a metadata analysis. You can take previously published data and reanalyze it with a new research question and apply new statistical analysis to it. And that is what's known as a metadata study. So you are getting data that others have collected and you're interrogating it for new questions. But in order to do that, you have to have access to the raw data. So if you're just looking at published papers and you're saying, okay, if we look at these 6 papers, 4 of them came to this conclusion that is very similar, that's a lit review. You're just pulling together, you're synthesizing the information. Please don't go into this thinking one of these versus the other is easier. They are challenging in their own unique ways. So again, it's sort of more of, if you will, a thought exercise for the lit survey versus the hands-on research plan, which I will call experimental from here on out. But you're going to be putting in a lot of effort no matter which one you go. I mean, this is your senior seminar, so we are asking a lot, okay? So those are the two options. This week, week 1, is where you are picking a path. You're either completing your plan or you're going for a lit review. So let's talk about that experimental plan specifically. When you finish, you're going to produce 2 things, and they're due in week 7 and 8 in our class. The first is a research paper. The second is a research presentation. The research paper is going to mimic a scientific study and a published paper. Okay, so you're still going to have background research and introduction section. You're going to have a materials and methods. You're going to have a data analysis. You're going to have a conclusion. And in particular, what you're going to see as you work through our class is your interim deliverables will exactly match the headings on the classroom assignments. Okay, I'm going to get to that in a second. You're going to have a research presentation. You're going to summarize your work. It's often a little more image heavy from images that you took. It'll be tables that you created. You will present to an audience of faculty and students. And if you have friends and family that are available to come, they are always welcome as well. The main output for option 2 hereafter referred to as the lit review, is a research paper and a research presentation. Okay. So in the case of the paper, it's called a research paper in this case because you're doing the research, the sort of computer-based research. You are mimicking a review paper, not an experimental paper. So you will not have introduction, materials and methods, data and analysis, conclusion section. Therefore, your interim deliverables will not exactly match in title the assignments posted in our classroom. I am going to give you a tool to help with that and at the end of this. So really what you're doing with your lit review is you're trying to answer some fundamental questions. What is already known about your topic? What is the current field of the science? What type of studies have been done? What questions remain unanswered? Okay, again, there is no new data analysis. There are no new conclusions. This is really just synthesizing a bunch of information. You're still going to do a research presentation that's going to summarize your work. You may have some tables, you may have some images, they'll just be cited. So they will most likely come from your papers, the papers that you're reviewing. You're welcome to create some of your own, but that's very rare in this case. And again, you're going to present to an audience of faculty, students, and friends and family. So again, please don't think that one of these is easier than the other. Let me just draw this to conclusion. I don't want to go into too many details right now because they're very easy to go down specific rabbit holes. But let's just talk about transitioning, which we're doing right here in this first week, and then some schedules and some recommendations. So everyone is going to work closely with me in the early weeks. Okay, so if you are completing an experimental plan, you and I are still going to need to do a quick, okay, yeah, this is feasible. Yes, you have time to do this. Yes, you need to go ahead and start data collection now, even though data collection is not listed till later in the class. If you're doing that lit review instead, we'll be working on your proposed schedule for tackling that, number of sources, all those kinds of things. Everyone will end with the same two products, slightly different in tone, but still a 20-page paper and still a research presentation for about 20 minutes with approximately 10 minutes for questions. So the links of these things are the same in terms of total page count, total slide or presentation length. We will work on the details individually as we move along. Everyone normally modifies their plan at this point in time. So even if you're doing an experimental design or an experiment, it is okay to be modifying your plan. We want to do something. We want to create a plan that you can actually complete. Okay, so the idea is not to dig into what you thought you were going to do. Situations change, any number of things can happen. For example, I once had a student who was doing a sea turtle experiment and one of her beaches got hit by a hurricane. Well, obviously, we had to modify the plan. Okay. And at the end of it, the tone of your writing is going to be the same. So it is meant to mimic an academic and a scholarly publication. Okay, so think of those primary literature papers you've been reading. I need to feel like I'm reading one of those. And this is really something that was covered a lot in the first video if you wanted to watch it or need to review it. So what is our schedule and what are my recommendations? So with this video link in the announcement, with this video link, I'm going to include an Excel file. It has two tabs. One is for the experimental and one is for the lit review. There are a couple of notes on the lit review. Well, there's a couple of notes on both, but there's a couple of notes on the lit review to help guide you in developing your schedule. Your schedule for the lit review will be a little bit different. You do not have to use this file. You do not have to use this format, but it is there if you wish to. What I have listed is our class week and the individual assignments. Very importantly, I have not listed the discussions. So keep that in mind. This is not a comprehensive look at what we're doing in class. This is focused only on the interim deliverables for your final project and presentation eventually. If you're doing an experimental plan, you've got to meet those deliverables in that order. If you are doing a lit review, I give you a couple of options for how you can break out your schedule. At the end of week one, you still have to provide me a schedule for what you're going to do and when. And after looking at that file, that Excel file, if you still can't figure out how to hash out that schedule, reach out to me so I can help you with that. Okay. My recommendation for you, no matter which plan you're doing, go find a published paper right now that you really, really love. For an experimental approach, go find one of your main sources that has an intro, that has the materials and methods, that has the data and analysis and conclusion section. If you're going to be doing a lit review, go find a lit review paper on your topic or a closely related topic. Important note, you are going to use a lot more sources in a lit review. I would say a lot of times maybe up to double, but you can't just use other lit reviews. Okay, so you will need to go to primary literature. But I want you to find a lit review right now because I want you to see how they break them up. And the reason I'm asking you to go find that example paper, again, is because that's going to become your model. And if when we start engaging in discussions and you're like, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do here, or I don't really know how to hash my schedule for my lit review, I'm going to ask you, okay, give me your example paper. And I'm going to give you an answer in relation to using that paper as a model. Okay, so if you go ahead and find it now, you're a little ahead of the game. And plus, it may address a lot of your questions. All right. All of this is to say, or none of this is to say, and let me close by again emphasizing I'm here to help and I'm eager to help. You can find me in the one-on-one chat. That's where to drop all your questions. I will do everything I can to get things sorted out. Please always start with very specific questions in those posts because a lot of times in my experience, we can hash them out electronically and then there's a record for you to go back and review in written form. But if we cannot sort things out, I will make a time for us to speak live, so we can get any issues hashed out that we need to. Okay. And again, I'm very happy to be here with you. I look forward to our time together, and you know what to do if you need help. And with that, let me end this video.